Welcome to Green Carpet Interviews. Let's get into the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Green Carpet Interviews. Today, we've got someone that's really cool. I'm looking forward to this interview because, we're both sort of entrepreneurial, I'd say, like, even from a younger age, younger age, and obviously you too, you've had that sort of entrepreneurial spirit. And today we're going to meet somebody who is very, like, she is like next level, she is like, she's teaching the entrepreneurs what's going on in the world. Um um her so I'm just looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't just waiting for you to sing. No, no, you're doing good. No, really, I think it's going to be exciting to just have this person come on, and I'm going to, lay it down. This is Stephanie, and so she's going to come on. She's an amazing person, and I've listened to quite a bit of what she's done already, and I'm just really excited. As entrepreneurs ourselves, having so much to learn, I can't wait to hear all that she has to teach us. So, and she's got a very unique way of really expressing all that needs to be done, and just the mental organization that she has. I'm just looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good, and I'm excited for the people, especially if you are an entrepreneur who is vegan, who is, looking to, or maybe you already have a business and you're looking to understand and grow, or you are, you've got an idea, and you're looking to see, well, what's the next step? What do you have to do next in order to, make this work, um, so yeah, it's just gonna be great. So she is she works with a lot of entrepreneurs. Her company is Vegan Mainstream, which is it's just a great concept. We'll have her explain more, but let's just bring her on. Hello, there's Stephanie.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great,
Great,
doing really good.
awesome. Thank you so much
So
for being here.
yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's an honor. I'm really excited about today's session.
So for those people who don't know who you are, can you just give us a brief intro on what you do and all that?
Absolutely. So I had this like vision when I started my company, and maybe even just being a vegan and having an entrepreneur background. I had this idea of like, what could I do to help kind of move the movement forward? How do we create this like pro-vegan world? So what I do really on a day-to-day basis is try to help perpetuate that world by creating kind of a infrastructure around the vegan movement. What we do here at Vegan Mainstream is support entrepreneurs, whether you are one, aspiring to be one, have been an entrepreneur, and now you're becoming a vegan entrepreneur. What we try to do is give people the tools, the support, the advice, and really an environment or community to be able to come to so that they can navigate the ups and downs of running a business and also doing something in this vegan movement, because for many of us, we're trailblazers. We're starting the only vegan restaurant in our city, or this is the first time we started a coaching business and we're trying to help people transition. We're creating all this support for our community, and what we try to do is play a small, or maybe large in some cases, role in helping that movement move forward through inspiring people to be entrepreneurs and to build a business community to help move the movement forward.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
What are some of the like, you've worked with a lot of people and a lot of businesses. What are some of the biggest challenges you've seen, vegan entrepreneurs facing, and sort of what do you guys do to like help them get past them?
Absolutely. And I would probably say a lot of what we do is a lot of business coaching, a lot
Mhm.
of just walking people through that process and helping them establish that infrastructure. We also do some marketing services and all that good stuff, but our goal is to help people really understand their roadmap. When you
Mm.
start a business, often you have so much, passion, so much desire to get started. And many people are like experts in their field. They know how to do what they do well. They're amazing at fashion, or maybe they create vegan skincare products, or maybe they're a fitness coach. But the business side is not as natural. It's something that,
Mhm.
they're learning and they're willing to learn, but they need support on how to
Mm.
decide priorities, on how to decide which social media platform I should be on. Or in some cases, what they're trying to do is, build for that next new product, new service, or expand. And as they're at those crossroads, they often will kind of reach out to someone like me to help them through that process. And that's really the key is us trying to help people who are saying, okay, I want to be able to expand to a new market. How do I do that, Stephanie? Or someone saying, okay, I've done a lot of offline marketing, or I've done a lot of word of mouth marketing, but now I want to do like funnels. I've been reading marketing books, I've been
Mm.
all over YouTube. How do I set those things up that tend to be a little bit more complex? And sometimes it's helpful to have someone along the kind of in the car with you is another way to say it.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it is just thinking about it from a vegan perspective. There's all different ways to run our businesses. There's all different ways to set our priorities. And
Mm.
what we try to do, especially with me being a vegan myself and that extension flowing through my team, what we try to keep in mind is how do we do that in a way that helps the movement? How do we do that in a way that's aligned with our ethics and our goals and not just aligned with the bottom line?
Mm.
Mm.
And therefore, when we make decisions, when we decide what ingredients we're going to use, or when we decide how we're going to source things, or what partners to work with, we try to make sure that we help people do it in a way that kind of fits with the overall brand identity and with their goals. And I think that's one of those things that can be hard sometimes if you don't have someone that understands the movement and understands why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm.
Mm.
Sometimes a business coach will send you in a different direction that could conflict with what your ultimate goals are.
Mm.
It's pretty
It's
awesome.
really good.
Often, kind of, a lot of times when we bring people on, or even entrepreneurs themselves, like in my case, we have values that maybe uh, could shed light on a different type of personality that we have that may not necessarily align with the fundamental vegan values. And how do we get that not so optimal personality trait? How do we put it in perspective so that it does not take away from that vegan, you know, uh, values, the values of compassion, of making sure that we're not harming or hurting people or animals? How do we get that so that maybe that hard shell that we have, the harder, not so, um, you know, values that don't have as much decorum as we may want to have, in that we think we should have in business? How do we work with that, and what responsibility we have as entrepreneurs to make sure that we don't show that, or what do we do with it?
Mm.
Absolutely. So I got a couple thoughts on that. Number one, I really think it's so important for many of us to write down why we're doing what we're doing.
Mm.
Mhm.
Because the reason sometimes we either veer off the path or we take on traits that are maybe even not our own traits, but we see other people doing it. So we assume to get ahead, to be successful, we have to take that on.
Mm.
Is just because, day to day information, ads, all the things that are coming at us are
Mm.
sometimes shaping us and we don't realize how much they're shaping us.
Mhm.
And when I find if you write down what your core values of your business, what are your goals and why you do that, and keep that on a very short, tight sheet of paper, whether it's something you even just tape on your desk so it's a reminder,
Mhm.
whether it's a even quick post-it note, because maybe you only need something short and sweet and say, I do this because, and then you put it on a
Mm.
post-it note and even put it on the corner of your monitor, or you have a whiteboard or anything like that. Some people even frame it I think that's so important because it's not just losing that compassion.
Mm,
What happens sometimes is we lose ourselves a little bit. We
Mm,
lose our
mm,
core because we are often aspiring for something. And when you're aspiring, sometimes that path that you take, you just take a right when you should take it a left.
mm,
So I do think it's so important to have that reminder, even if it's very short. Like I said, I do this because sometimes you're going to have bad days. Sometimes you're going to have frustrating days. And that note, if you can just like look at it out the corner of your eye, can help you through that day and may help you get back on the path. The other thing I would say is surround yourself with people who have a similar vision.
mm,
And I don't mean it has to be like super, super formal and it's like people you meet with all the time and all that, but build a network. I tell a lot of people who start businesses to, create a sounding board. And whether that's
mm,
like 2 or 3 people, that's kind of like in your network that you can bounce ideas off of. That's kind of a group of individuals that you can call that if you come up with the crazy wild idea, they'll tell you the truth. They'll tell you, good idea, but I don't know if that's really right for you.
that's
And
good.
that having someone who can give you a little bit of that check and maybe even checkmate at
Mm,
times can help you stay on course, I think is really key. And then also, I think sometimes what we struggle with is just loving ourselves and loving the incompleteness of who we are. Like we see ourselves in businesses like, I got to be the leader, the entrepreneur. I have to have all the answers. My team, my employees, my staff, my customers, my clients, everybody's looking at me. So we build this hard shell to protect ourselves, or
mm,
we
mm,
build this environment to kind of keep us on this pedestal. And the reality
mm,
is, we're all part of the same community. We're all here to drive such amazing things to happen in our communities, to help the world be a better place, to help with the environments, to save animals. And therefore, you don't have to be on that pedestal for protection.
mm.
You have to feel comfortable to just kind of hang out with everyone with our flaws, with our mistakes, with our oopses, and know that you're doing more good in the world.
Mm.
And that good in the world matters more than the oopses and the mistakes. And the oopses and mistakes are what make us all strong. It's kind of
mm.
like as a kid, you got to stand up and fall a couple of times before you start walking.
Yeah, it's true.
Same thing as an entrepreneur. You got to do this and be like, "Ooh, I should do that differently. Ooh, I could have done that better." And I
Yeah.
think being comfortable and compassionate with ourselves is so key because sometimes we want the world to have compassion and then we're a little bit like subconsciously mean to ourselves. And I
Yeah.
think it's so important that we extend that compassion to ourselves, our businesses, our learning process, and stay true to who we are and how we can truly help the world.
That's awesome.
Wow, it's really great. It's so true. I feel like um, we're like in a media driven world. And I think that a lot of the things that we see, you know, about people who are entrepreneurs or business owners are, it makes you believe that they are, untouchable. Like, no, they're the
Mhm.
ones on top. They should be, shouldering all of the risks. I mean, which they will be, but like they have to have this hard shell around them, and I think that what you're saying is really great because I think, if you really care about the thing that you're going after, you're pursuing, and the people around you really care about the thing you're pursuing and going after, just being with them during all the mistakes, the oopses and the and the falling down,
Mm.
uh will I probably even just make the team stronger because you're growing together,
Mhm.
and that's something that in like thinking about these these people, these CEOs, that you see on TV or whatever. You're like, oh well, these people are infallible. Like they don't make mistakes, and if they do make mistakes, it's like, they get the axe immediately. And so like we feel like we have to be perfect all the time, which is probably unfair. Like you said, just be a little bit more compassionate with yourself, especially because we are. you know, essentially, you know, being vegan is, you know, having compassion for everyone and all things. And I think you're right. We absolutely skip over ourselves when we in this journey. I think we skip over ourselves. I mean, at least I do. I don't
Yeah,
can't
one of the
speak
things
for anybody
also,
else.
yeah, one of the things that I liked about what you said is, I mean, and I can tell also just by observing you and hear you speak, that something you're so grounded in who you are. And that is so like awesome to me, like, because a lot of times, I have this personality that I have to have on when I'm with that other person, that sometimes it makes it difficult to say exactly what we mean, to say, I don't think it's right we should do this to animals, or I don't think we should do this, right? And it makes me want to hold back. And how do you stay grounded in who you are as a person, and then be able to still say those things that you need to say?
Well, to say some of the things that need to be said, sometimes it does take a little bit of courage. It takes a little bit of a leap of faith.
Hmm.
Because not everyone will receive the message well. Sometimes people just misunderstand. That happens often when you see clips, when you look at kind of like the headlines. Sometimes things are taken out of context. And then also, unfortunately, we do live in a world where we have people where their main job is to go around and just critique people. And critique them for silliness, critique them for their hair, critique them for their standing, and you know what I mean, their eye size, and just very
Yeah, yeah,
odd things.
yeah.
And they can kind of really kind of pick away
Hmm.
at an individual. So I think the idea is that we have to, it almost goes back to that vision, that gold, and honing in on the idea that you have to remember the purpose or the reason why you're doing what you're doing. And if you
Mm.
remember that, yes, there may be a little bit of anxiety at times. Maybe there's going to be a moment where you're like, is this the right message to the right group?
Hmm.
Mm.
But the only way to get better at what you do is to often do it. It does take practice. It doesn't take perfection to get there. It really takes practice to get better at delivering these messages, better at how you say it to different groups. So you have to be willing to get on that journey. It's kind of like
Right.
first time becoming a vegan.
Hmm.
You have to get on that journey and realize that, like, I'm going to make a couple of dishes that aren't going to taste so good. I'm
Yeah.
going to make my first vegan cake. And, only my mother and my brother and my sister are going to eat it. That kind of thing, where it's okay,
I've
because
been
that's where
there.
we all start. But we forget as we get older, as we, as we become adults, we think that we've made it to the finish line. And the reality is we're still on that journey, whether it's an entrepreneur journey, whether it's our vegan journey, whether our same thing of, even like as vegans, we kind of get to this like perfectionist stage where like everything we do has to be vegan, everything we touch,
Mhm.
and it has to happen now. And the
Mhm.
idea is it doesn't have to happen now. You have to just be consistently on that journey so you can be the person that you want to be, so that your veganism can shine. And eventually it just shines because it is who you are. You don't have to go through a 20-point checklist on a daily basis to say, am I vegan enough? So
Mhm.
I think it's just kind of getting used to that idea of communicating, getting used to and being comfortable with communicating and trying different messaging, and understanding sometimes you might get a little pushback,
Mhm.
and that's okay, because it'll make you better at speaking. It'll make you better at, handling questions. And just start in maybe comfortable environments, start in semi tense environments. You may not want to go get on the Ranchers podcast first to have that discussion. Start with a vegan podcast if you're trying to get your message across. You feel more
Mhm.
comfortable, and then work your
Yes.
way up to groups that are a little bit further away from your core messaging and want to give you a hug. Work your way out. So then, over 6 months, over however many months, you build your ability to speak, to
Mhm.
talk, and to recognize what audience can hear what message at what time.
Yeah,
Nice. Thank you.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, how do you see sort of the vegan business movement evolving in the next couple of years, and sort of what is what do you feel like your role is going to be in that?
Well, if I had a crystal ball and if I knew everything that was going on, I would guess that would see more kind of integration of vegan businesses. I think one
Mm,
of our challenges is when vegan businesses um, kind of have been kind of coming on the scenes. A lot of it has been in the food industry. Now, rightfully
Right.
so, because that helps us directly save and impact animals.
mm,
But I think we have to keep challenging the movement and challenging entrepreneurs
Mm,
to spread out our kind of depth,
mm,
allow us to have businesses across all industries and multiple industries,
mm,
because for us to impact climate change, for us to impact and create an environment where people are more compassionate, what we have to do is make sure that in all the little nooks and crannies and all the different
mm,
places in supply chains in
mm,
multiple industries, people feel it. They see and have someone there who is vegan. Someone's at the
mm,
table who's vegan, who's
mm.
speaking from this perspective. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a food-based business.
Sure.
Having someone in the room that talks about accounting from a vegan perspective, that talks about
Mm,
how you develop a bottom line, why and how you actually make decisions on your budget and your finances when you have a ethical driven
mm.
business
right.
versus a business that's maybe driven by their shareholders.
Profit. Yeah,
Different,
Yeah.
different
that's right.
purpose. So helping people kind of see us in all these different places. Plus,
Mm,
what gets me excited about it, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, so hopefully everyone who's listening get excited too, is it creates more space for all of us to participate in the movement.
yes.
Mm,
Meaning if we're not great chefs, if we're not like innovators or a person who's like, that in that space,
Yeah.
mm,
we don't have to fit into there. We can literally bring what we do well. If you're a
mm,
great public speaker,
mm.
then you have a role. If you're a
That's right.
Yeah.
writer, you have a role. If you're a vegan
That's right.
hairdresser, you have a role.
That's right.
Because a lot of the products that we use,
Right.
often will come as byproducts. So by being a hairdresser, teaching people how to choose healthier, natural products, so that inside and out, we can be not only vegan, but really take care of ourselves is
Mhm.
huge. And I think that can
Absolutely.
be a game changer. I think more and more people going into service-based businesses, a very big advocate of that because it allows people to start businesses quickly. As you probably know from the restaurant business, even from manufacturing business, there's a lot of capital that's required.
Yes.
And therefore, people have to put a lot on the line to make that decision. And it can be
Mm,
hard. Like if you have a young family, you just got married, just bought a house, all these things that
mhm,
happen. Maybe you're taking care of a parent or a grandparent. It can be hard to make that commitment.
mm,
So starting with a service-based business helps you because you can still be active, but maybe you don't have to have that huge financial investment. So I just hope a lot of people see that the movement is for them. There's a space for it. And there's a space for, not only starting these businesses, but helping employ more
mm,
vegans as well. Because employing more vegans, giving them a space where they can live out their careers and do it in an ethical way just creates this cool like ecosystem
Mhm.
for the movement. And I really hope that that's really kind of in our future.
mm,
Thank you. That's really great. It's fascinating because, for example, like in our restaurant, we don't have any negative messaging. Because I sometimes you can go into a restaurant, a vegan restaurant, and you see, things that really can be off-putting for somebody who is coming in for the first time to, yeah, well, let me give him a look. So we don't have that, but I also see that by holding that type of a value or space where there's no negative messaging, it could also be sort of not really saying what we should say at the right time, for example. Because we're not providing the message maybe that somebody needs to hear about something that may not be right that's happening in the community or in the world, to animals or the environment and so on. And so by not having, how do you handle that message without coming across as though we are trying to be confrontational, you know, um, to our fellow human beings, our brothers and sisters and friends and community members.
Yeah. Well, two things I would say is I don't think we all have to carry all aspects of the message, meaning
Mm.
everyone's got to have this perfect balance between positive and negative, or do you know what I mean? We do this and we do this. I think that's what's the beauty of us being more of a movement
Mm.
than just us as individuals moving things forward, is that some people have amazing style and they can deliver a very difficult message and it's so digestible. When they say it, you're not offended. You're like, oh, okay. Let me think about that. And they have that skill. And I want to let those people do that as
Mhm.
opposed to someone who's bubbly and, do you know what I mean? They just really want to bring sunshine everywhere into the world. I don't want to make them bend to having to
Mm,
deliver that kind of message.
Mm.
I want them to bring that sunshine in, because the reality is everyone needs different messaging at different times.
Mm.
Sometimes we need a little bit of sternness. Sometimes we need a hug.
Mm.
And I think we have to not always think that we all have to deliver the hard message or slam down the hammer to make it all work, because we are trying to move millions and billions of people forward. And if that's the case, some of us just respond more positively towards positive messages. Some of us need more neutral messages, that messages that aren't so emotionally charged, but are the facts or are the stats. And
Mhm.
some of us need that push to say, hey, do you realize the negative impact of the decisions you're making? So I really feel like we should give all of us a little bit of space to express our messaging in the way that works for us, that makes it natural. And so we can be consistent with that message,
Mm.
because I think that consistency is what can really drive change. And then partner with somebody, bring somebody on your podcast that has that voice and loves the bullhorn and can go, "Rah, rah, rah." Let
that's right.
them do it and do it well. So that you don't have to step into other shoes, or like we talked about earlier,
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
have to try to be somebody else.
Mhm.
We allow somebody else to shine in front of our audience, and let that happen.
That's so awesome. I'm that person. And I think it's probably coming from my mother, because she was such a positive and such a gentle, gracious person, and I feel that. So it feels, I feel this sense of not having to be everything to everybody, just do me. And it works because I'm part of a bigger movement. I'm not all by myself. And it's so good to know that, I'm here with you and with Deji, and we are all together in doing this. It doesn't have to fall on one person. That's so good. Yeah, so important.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that messaging as well. I mean, I think another thing too is that you know, I feel like, because with the restaurant, at least, it's like we've always sort of had that, the 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 messaging of, you know making sure that nothing is sort of like harmful, or like, we've had this much as messaging for a long time. But you see examples of other people doing it, other people doing, like, different types of, not that is bad or good or whatever, it's just different types or different styles of messaging. And you see them getting a response, from people. And uh and I think it's really good what you said about just being consistent, and
Right.
being, you can be that person, you can be the company that speaks this way. And then also just giving, a little bit of space to other people that you like and you think are doing it well, just onto our platform, to then speak the way that they like, that they enjoy. And that's very good. It's very powerful to not have to feel like you need to be everyone for everything for everyone. So that's really good.
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you.
And being in a restaurant, what I think is very interesting about that is, this is often a stage in someone's maybe journey where they're
Mm.
trying, they're testing, they've
Right.
come in to kind of, maybe get started. And, I think sometimes we mix up the idea that when people need what messaging along that journey,
Mhm.
when someone's trying to start, sometimes you don't want to scream in their ear. because they're nervous, they're unsure, and so forth. So, if they're met with a little too much, they might step back.
Mhm.
But if they were met with that a little bit further along in their journey, it might have been the perfect time for that message.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's not that we have to be all things at one time, it's that we have to allow people through their journey to get the friendly, hey, welcome, come on in kind of messaging, then get the messaging that says, hey, this is something you should get started, give it a try, we'll support you. And then sometimes people need the message to say, okay, it's time to make the leap. Let's go vegan. Let's get your t-shirt. Let's do this. Or someone's like, "Oh, I'm not sure." And then maybe they need that messaging that says, "Hey, this is the health messaging you need to understand because
Mhm.
this is serious. This is something where you want to stop some of this generational tragedies that we're having where
Mhm.
people are getting sick, people are passing down very reversible diseases in our families. Maybe they need to hear the messaging about what's happening. They're all about the environment, but they're not realizing how much water and also
Mhm.
feed is used
That's
in
right.
the animal agriculture. So they need that hard message, but they didn't need it on day one. They didn't need it on, or even like T minus zero, as
Yes.
they say. They
Yes.
really needed it later on in the journey. And we have to make sure that there's messaging and support so that people can make that transition. Because many of us who are vegan right now, we weren't born vegan. Many
Mhm.
of us
That's right.
started somewhere else. So we have to give people the grace to walk that journey just like we were able to walk it as well.
Mhm.
That's awesome. It's interesting because we because of the way we don't really have any negative messaging in the restaurant. I guess it was sort of the reason why we decided to have this wing of our business, which is the information or the educational business, because then we can bring experts in who can actually really talk about this. You know, that way we don't have to have that obligation to do so. And I've been quite restless for the last 6 years. So when are we going to start this? Because I can see that we're just sort of there, and we're not really sharing the information. Now, people do come to our restaurants and they love the food and so on, but I think not really talking about that message, not knowing, oh, how did we come about this? Often people think it's just delicious food, it's vegan, oh, and they walk away. There's no education or no information given. And I think being able to know how to bring experts in this format, for example, so that they can then learn more is really helpful. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And what a lot of people do is they also do events, like if they do have a location like yourself,
Uh,
Mhm.
they may do like little meetups, they may host events at their locations so that people already are coming to you for food,
Mhm.
but would they come for a lunch and talk?
uh,
Would they come for other activities? And maybe they're even hosted by people you can partner with. Because we got to share all the expenses and all that good stuff because we want to make sure everything's financially viable.
Mhm.
But setting that up and having that environment can be great. And then therefore you can bring in a vegan doctor one
Mhm.
week. You can bring in someone who is let's say a nutritionist another week, or a registered dietitian if you want to take that route. Then you can bring
Mhm.
in someone, like I said before, the environmental side. And therefore, you can start to incorporate it in a way that it's the right space for it. It doesn't
mm.
have to be, here's your dinner and here's a pamphlet at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You can say, hey, we have events and educational, we do fun. And also, there should be a fun element to it.
Right.
We're trying to kind of live here as a lifestyle, and as a lifestyle we want it to be fully welcoming. We don't want it to only be, being a vegan is more about the messaging and getting it across, and we got to get on these podiums and talk.
Yeah.
We want people to feel like they're part of a community and that being vegan is a part of their life. It's not like, okay, I'm vegan here and then I'm Stephanie over here. The
Mm.
idea is
Mhm.
that I'm all one thing, I'm all wrapped in, I'm vegan,
Mhm.
I'm Black, I'm from Philly, like all these
Right.
dimensions and stuff exist in me,
Mhm.
regardless. And the idea is everyone wants a space where they feel like they belong. And that also often means that, you may do game night. You
Right.
may do other things. You may have a vegan comedian come in,
Mm,
Ooh, I like
and
that.
things like that that can be fun and light, but also allow people to not only hear the messaging, but experience what it's like to be a part of this lifestyle,
mm,
so that they feel like it's a place to live, not
mm,
just a place to listen.
mm. That's really
It's
great.
really, really fascinating. For the longest time, when I hear veganism, I just thought it was about talking about veganism and then making food. I really thought those are the two domains of veganism. I didn't think that anything else existed around veganism. But to hear you and to say, when we say lifestyle, in other words, all aspects of life, when did you get to that point that you say, wait a minute, if this is going to be a lifestyle, it has to encompass all types of businesses, all services, so we are really creating a community, a world community here. How did you get to that point where it clicked?
I think it's multiple things that probably happened to me. I mean, one of my big things is, I kind of have a entrepreneur background. Like as a kid, my parents had businesses, so I kind of feel like it's in my blood. But I also, spent a good amount of time in corporate America. So working for like big corporations, flying around the world, you know what I mean, doing all those things that like you hear about in these like corporate jobs that have like, VP titles and all those things. I had that chance to live that life too.
Mm,
And when I was at a crossroads to say, do I continue that corporate life or do I do something
Mm,
different? I was at a place there where I understood that I wanted veganism to kind of pull through my life.
mm,
But it was the first time when I thought about it from a career standpoint that I was like, I can't start a restaurant. I don't,
mm.
I like to cook, but that's not, I mean, that's not me. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't think and I realized that, I want to be the one eating the food, not making the food. And I had to start to say, well, wait a minute, is there a place for me in the world? Is there a place for me to
Mhm,
work? Can I
mm,
do what I want to do? Will people be interested in it? And in the beginning, people were like, huh? I don't understand what you do. So,
wow.
it was hard in the beginning because I was like, it's vegan marketing and we're going to help businesses. Now, remember, I've been doing this for a lot of years. It's probably been at least 14 years. So, it was before all the big brands that we see today. Most
yeah.
people were small, local restaurants, local retail shops, and everything. So, it was a new time.
Mm,
But many people are going to feel that same thing when they have their next big idea, that people are going to be
Mm.
like, huh? How
mm.
does that work? And I bring that up because sometimes you have to decide, I think it can work. Like sometimes you
Yeah.
gotta,
Mm,
like, as they say, bet on yourself. And what I realized is, I did marketing, I did business coaching. Like, this is what I'm really good at. Why can't
mm,
I bring it to the vegan world? Why can't I bring what I do and what I love to the world and to the movement? And is there a space for me? And I think that was one of those big aha moments for me to say that there's all types of space, there's all types of room. I don't mean it's going to be easy, I don't mean it's not going to be bumpy. And it doesn't mean you're not going to have to change because my business has drastically changed from what it was when I originally started. And it happens to most of us. But our original businesses, it moves. And rightfully so.
Yeah.
But I say that to say that, being comfortable with that path and being comfortable with the idea that, you know, sometimes your aha moment may be a little bit of an uncomfortable space,
mm,
but you really can find yourself when you lean into the fact that there's a place for me in the world. Because I
mm,
think a lot of times our world sometimes squeezes individualism out. And when I say individualism out, maybe that's a bad way to say it, but sometimes we squeeze out the ability for us to just be ourselves as opposed to the poster version of ourselves.
mm,
And I think that's the challenge with like Instagram. Like you look on Instagram and people are like, remote working or working while I'm traveling, and there's these like huge homes and, pools and all these things. And you're like, what? And it looks like that is the life we should lead, or it looks like this
Mm.
is how entrepreneurs should work, or even from a
Mm.
veganism standpoint. Sometimes, when you look at the dishes that people are creating and like you take their recipe, you make it at home, it never looks like it did on Instagram. It tastes good,
Yeah.
but it never looks like that. And you can internalize that as like a failure. And the
Mm.
reality is, you're not into plating. You're not doing food photography. That person is, or they have someone who does it.
Hmm.
So therefore, we don't have to live up to these odd standards sometimes.
Mhm.
We really have to ground ourselves and realize that, when we're making that transition, when we're trying to find a space for ourselves, when we're trying to figure out what and how we're going to live these lifestyles, that, you know what I mean? It's not always going to look the way someone else is doing it. And
Mm.
guess what? There's probably someone out there like you that would appreciate that as well. There's
Mm.
somebody out there who would appreciate not just the poster polished, photoshopped version of something, but someone who would appreciate, a very, everyday living, everyday experience, and allowing yourself to be you and be you in this space. I think it's just hard in general in life,
Mm.
but I think it's so important to do that as well in the vegan world, because we can also put ourselves in a box, and then, when frustration sets in, we have a hard time staying in this lifestyle because we kind of boxed ourselves in.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's so beautiful because what you're saying, it's like we have to create that space because it's there. We got to go in and say, yeah, there's space for vegan advertising, or for vegan marketing, or for vegan social services, whatever it is. That's very interesting. I honestly, I just never thought we could have uh, such a global community.
Mm.
That's amazing. I'm excited about that, but even more so excited that I don't have to be what I'm not.
Yeah, that's very good.
Because that's the part that I'm not willing to compromise that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have a question. So how do you how do you balance, like, because you kind of mentioned a little bit before, but how do you balance, sort of your personal values, as being a vegan, with sort of the need to run a sort of a successful business, and in all the challenges that happen in that, and with keeping, those values in mind. What would
Yeah.
you?
Some of it is also coming up with a good routine.
Mm.
And I would say two things. I really am a big advocate of having like a morning regimen. And what do you do to kind of set up your day?
Mm.
Because this can happen inside or outside of the entrepreneurial world. But often when you just kind of wake up and just see what comes at you, you start looking at email, or you start
Mm.
looking at
Mhm.
social media, or you read the newspaper, or whatever your kind of thing is that isn't necessarily designed to set up a good day.
Mm.
What you read, what you receive, what you see, you become reactionary. And in the
Yeah.
beginning of the day, you have now set a certain kind of mode or tempo. And
mm,
what I find is if you can control that tempo, if you can actually say, okay, before I get the emails, or before whatever those things that can trigger you, and we all have to know what those things are,
Yeah.
figure out what you need. Do you need to take a 20-minute walk in the beginning of the morning?
Mm.
Are you a person that works out? And that thing may change. That's the other thing I've found is, I'll do one thing and then all of a sudden 6 months later, I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't work anymore for
Mm.
me.
Yeah.
I have
mm,
to do something new and something
mm,
Yeah.
different. And I think allowing yourself that space to grow.
mm,
I do a really basic thing in the morning that probably sounds so small, but it helps me a ton, is that I do these like yogurt bowls. My niece got me into them, where you have some vegan yogurt, you have like some granola and some fruit and some chia seeds, maybe a
Mhm.
little coconut, and all that good stuff in it. But the biggest thing about it is having it and walking away from my desk. Like I used to eat at my desk, do everything at my desk. And now what I try to do is when I have that bowl, either I sit outside in our little patio, it's just quiet, it's just green behind our house. So it's not really anything going on, but I kind of dig it because
Yeah.
it's very relaxing. It gives me a moment in time that's just in the environment. And if I can't sit outside, I just sit by the window and look outside, and just having that space and time to just relax, to just be grounded in myself, helps. Now, does it mean I do it every day? I mess up. I miss a day.
Yeah.
I grab my phone and see all those notifications and be like, oh my goodness, it happens to me. So then what I do is I find a way for me to get grounded again. If I do get off the rails or forget to do my morning regimen because something happened. And I recently sent an email out to my list where like, I love music. I wish one day I could truly be musically inclined, but my poor husband suffers that. But besides that, I love music. And music's one of those things that helps me change my mood and shape my mood. So I sent an email to folks, and I talked about how I like to listen to live concerts at times. And I like short ones. I don't have an hour of time to do it. So I'll go to YouTube, or I love like NPR's Tiny Desk. That's one of my favorite things. And you can like discover a new artist. You can discover totally different, maybe type of music that you're used to, or you may hear an acoustic version of something that you like. And what I found is that's been a really big help for me to ground myself when I have a frustrating day or things don't go the way I want. And so I don't carry that frustration forward, because I think that's what happens. We kind of like put our frustration on like a little backpack, and then we just keep it going. So the next person gets a little piece of that, and another person gets another piece of it. And it doesn't feel like we're really spreading it and sharing it.
Yeah.
But why not come up with some things that help you? Some people I know do yoga in the middle of the day. I've been even playing around with doing some like breath work, which I don't understand why it works so well, but it works so well for me.
Wow.
To
That's
take
great.
3 minutes
awesome.
and breathe like I'm
That's
not already
awesome.
breathing, but it works. And I think finding some of those things and spending time finding what can help you break up a bad day, shift your mood, or reground yourself can really help, because you can find yourself frustrated or in these kind of odd moods, but sometimes you don't remember how you got there. Like it's accumulation of like a whole week. So by like Friday, you're somewhere totally different than you were on Monday. And if you have done something to help you along the way, I think it's really important. And I think it's important in business. I think it's very important as activists out there. For many of us, we get very passionate about what the work that we're doing. And I really think it's even important in just everyday life. There's a lot of people that rely on a lot of us. There's just things that happen in the world that sometimes you can't control.
Yes.
And what you can control is your reaction to it. So having something that can help you navigate through it, I think is key. And that's what I try to do.
Wow. That's really great.
It's also interesting because they often talk about the failure rate of businesses, when we start businesses. And is there anything that we can do in the vegan world that may be different than what is done, in the general common environmental business, that maybe would help us to remain more viable, to sustain us longer? So because I think there's a lot at stake for a lot of other vegans that may need work or need space to be. So it's almost incumbent on entrepreneurs to really start different businesses so that there's more spaces. What can entrepreneurs do to have a better success rate than the general population?
So I got a couple of ideas on that. One of them is just a little bit on the vegan side, something that we can do so vegan businesses are more successful. And then to have a greater success rate on the other side, it's maybe not, vegan businesses versus non-vegan businesses. I'd probably say a lot of that has to do with understanding your measure of success. I think for some of us, we let the external world decide what that business metric of success is. And for some of us, our success is not always grounded in time. We look at
Mm.
someone else who's 5 years ahead of us, 10 years ahead of us, and we're like, I want that now. And while, it's good to be aspirational, yes, if you took someone else 10 years to do it, it'd be great for you to do it in less time, but it doesn't mean it's going to take 10 minutes for you to do it. And I think what we have to really kind of understand is making sure that when we understand what we're trying to do, that we set a 12-month goal, 24-month goal, and the
Mm,
5 year and three to 5 year goal. You
Mm.
often hear people talk about that 3 to 5 year goal, but I often don't hear people talk about where do you want to be just 12 months from now? Because I
mm,
can see that much better than I can see, Stephanie 5 years older.
Mm.
right.
We can see what July looks like. I can see what December looks like. You can see it because it feels a little bit closer to
Mhm.
you. And as vegan businesses, for many of us, we have something that kind of grounds our business
Mm,
beyond the financial goal. So what makes us kind of have a little bit of an advantage out there is because we have other metrics to either aspire to or
mm,
other things that we want to impact. What happens is we can stay on path. We
Mm.
can stay on target. Maybe it's a better way to say it.
Mhm.
We have the ability to really see a bigger picture and a bigger goal. And I think often what can happen with a lot of business owners is they start to get tunnel vision. They start to either, as I say, believe their own hype, you know, they they find ideas and do things without customer interaction, without
Mm.
community feedback, and they start to kind of go on this, founder's path or on this, path where they're like, I have an idea, it's got to be the best idea in the world, or the idea of no one's ever thought of an idea kind of in the world. And they lose touch. And I think as
Mm.
vegans, the more and more, especially as vegan owners, that we ground ourselves in that community aspect, we
mm,
can go further. We can be more successful and be more sustainable. But the flip side of that, I think where sometimes we struggle as vegan businesses is we forget that the financials are still important. Yes, we don't want to be only driven by the bottom line, but we can't ignore the numbers.
Mhm.
We can't just run a business completely on passion. We have to know what our numbers are. We have to know what our expenses are. We have to understand what profit is. We have to understand, what those numbers are and what they mean. Because yes, it feels good to want to be able to give it all away for free. But the reality is, we all have light bills and mortgages and
Mhm.
rent and, things we have to pay for and things we have to cover or pay back student loans or whatever it is. And you will need that income to pay for those things. And why not have that income come from your business?
That's right.
Why not come from or working for a vegan business
Sure.
instead of what many of us have to do is we have to go work for somebody else that isn't
mhm,
aligned with our ethics to be able to pay for those things. So
right.
helping people really value a financially successful business in the vegan world, I
Mm,
think is so important because we have to understand that success can yield greater success and movement. That
mm,
success means you can employ more people. That success means you can sponsor, I don't know, Little League and all the shirts say vegan on them. Do you know what I mean? And
yes.
all the meals can be vegan that are donated. Like you can do more. Or maybe you want to donate to your favorite animal rights organization. By having a successful business, we can kind of build this vegan economy and put
Mm,
money in the places that are helping the world, that are helping animals, that are helping the movement. And we can put that money in from the effort that we put into our businesses and the success it yields. So
Mm.
sometimes I like to just remind people
mm,
that that is a good thing. It isn't a bad thing to be successful, to have a
Mm.
profit. And there's a big difference between, having excess and opulence kind of thing versus running a business that's at a deficit and it doesn't have enough money to sustain itself.
Mhm.
There's a middle road. You can have a
right.
successful, financially viable, sustainable business without the greed, without all those other things, because now you've enabled yourself to help the movement move forward.
Mm.
Thank you. That's really good.
Yeah. The the thing that comes to mind is, I've just heard the saying before of, you can't really like, until you fill up your cup, you can't like be filling up other people's cups. And I think that, I feel like this metaphor plays in this as well, because, if you haven't, done all the due diligence, the, paying attention to the numbers, having a successful business, then you can't help anybody else out, and then
Absolutely.
also still have a business too without, being the cup being empty. So that's really great. How do you how do you feel? So I feel like there's a lot of, vegan businesses who have these face challenges really, when it comes to like scaling, uh scaling up, and then also competing with larger businesses that are like non-vegan, like maybe doing the exact same thing. Like, how do you feel like how would you sort of help those entrepreneurs who are like, it doesn't have to be food, it could be, like a vegan, you know uh clothing company, or, vegan, insurance, I don't know if that is a thing, but if that is
It
a thing, that's
exists.
cool.
It is.
Okay. So like, how do people who have the vegan companies sort of like compete with the ones who don't?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of different things I would say. One of them, not everyone loves that I say this, but I do believe it's so true, is that to be impactful as a vegan business, you don't have to be huge.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Often we think we have to be big.
Hmm.
So therefore we look at other big businesses and try to be a big business,
Yeah.
Mhm.
as opposed to being a very solid business, consistent business,
Hmm.
strong business, and long lasting business.
Hmm.
Those things are key, because even like we talked about the previous question, there's a lot of businesses that come and go,
Mhm.
and they try to kind of expand too fast, or it wasn't necessary for them to be, kind of the cover of the magazine kind of business. You can have really very successful businesses that are local businesses,
Hmm.
that
Mhm.
are businesses that have been around, and they have the shirts like doing this since da 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 da, this date or that date.
Right.
It's an amazing thing to do. And also it helps create generational wealth. Like being able to pass that down to other generations, to be able to have a business that can have that longevity, I think is
Hmm.
a huge thing that I think sometimes we can forget when we're just putting our eyes on how do we become big.
Hmm.
I really think there's power in being a strong, small business.
Hmm.
And I also think there's power in that because, you know, when you read a lot of people's stories, that there's sometimes a sacrifice for being big. And that
Hmm.
does mean less time with our families. Sometimes it means less time with our loved ones, less time that we can do in work that we can do in the community. So I
Hmm.
do think there's value in having a business that may be more moderate or medium or schmedium, whatever word you want to use
Hmm.
out there, that allows you to do the things that also matter so you can be in other people's lives.
Hmm.
So I do
Mhm.
think there's so much value in that, and people have very, very successful businesses that do that.
Hmm.
Now, when it comes to scaling, where I think people make a lot of mistakes or struggle, and what we try to help them with is understanding when something is ready to be scaled.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Often, scaling does not mean you have a big idea or I'm going to do something totally different. Scaling often means taking something that's successful and then you scale it. So what
Hmm.
happens is you already have the tools in place to
Mhm.
do what you're doing well. And then what you're trying to do is say, if I turn on the faucet in a sense, if more throughput came through, can I maintain that same service
Uh-huh.
level?
Right.
Can I maintain that same quality level?
Hmm.
Am I able to withstand the the struggle of success? Because we all talk about like the struggle of like not having customers, not having
Yeah.
money, but it's a struggle. Like if, people show up and say at your restaurant and there's a line around the block, that's stressful. It's a great thing, but it can be very stressful.
Yeah.
So, being able to say, what am I doing that's doing well? And how do I expand upon that? And sometimes it's the service or product that you're offering. So
Mhm.
looking for the adjacent product or service.
Mm.
So if you're a coaching business, as an example, and you've done a lot of coaching, say you're a fitness coach, as an example, what you may do from a scaling standpoint is you may take your core coaching program or platform and expand it or turn it into a membership site. If we're
Mm.
thinking about it from a restaurant standpoint, you may actually look at some of your hot ticket items, some items that are very popular, and then you may do special menus that allow you to take something that you know works well. You already have the ingredients on hand,
Mhm.
so you're not bringing in a whole new process. And you may do some specials, or maybe only do specials on slow nights. So you're not doing
Right.
specials on Saturday night and Friday night where it's crazy busy.
Right.
You're doing it strategically to be able to say, can I expand my menu? Can I be able to expand my offering?
Mm.
And I'm scaling it in a way step by step, instead of saying, I want to be here and I'm going to implement 20 new things on my menu. Or I want to be here and I'm going to do, 20 dresses in 20 different colors,
Yeah.
if you're doing vegan, clothing or fashion,
Mhm.
or if you're an interior designer, as an example, the question would be, what do you do well? Do you have a sweet spot as a vegan interior designer where you help people, with remodeling? If you're remodeling
Mm.
kitchens, if you're having people remodel offices, whatever that place is a sweet spot, can you do more of that and help people either come up with a more concierge version of what you do?
Mm.
Mm.
Or do you take what you do and you turn it into a course? Because the
Mm.
course becomes scalable, that an interior designer maybe only be able to work with one person or five clients at a time. But if they can turn it into a course,
Mm.
what they do, and teach people a DIY version of it, now they can get hundreds of people to be able to bring in vegan products, because interior design is notoriously not vegan friendly, a lot of the items that people use.
Yeah.
So being able to help people through that process and having a course that they're scaling is offering a course that complements a one-on-one service. And I think sometimes we have to get unique about what we mean by scaling,
Mm.
because I think it doesn't always mean bigger, bolder, you know, hit the pedal so that you're just giving it more gas. It's often taking something that works well and reshaping it in a way that either allows you to get scale because it creates greater access,
Mhm.
reshaping in a way so it allows you to test your way to more products or new services,
Mm.
or coming up with a process that works and trying to figure out, if I go into an adjacent market, if I go into an adjacent service, would that allow me to expand and be able to help more people?
Mm. Do you do you so when you're, assessing different companies, what is like, do you have like sort of certain criteria that you'd be like, all right, well, I think that you are not ready to scale yet, or I think that you are ready to scale yet, and sort of
Right.
what are some of those like boxes that you check,
Yeah.
in order to like determine whether a person's ready or not?
Yeah. There's probably let me maybe go with three things that I would assess. Now, I do let people know if they're not ready to scale,
Mhm.
or they maybe don't have a clear vision yet.
Mhm.
Because sometimes people have a successful business, but they really aren't clear on what they want to do. So sometimes it's asking people to articulate, what are you trying to achieve and by when,
Mm.
and what information are you using to help you come to that decision.
Mm.
And while some of us are always going to have that like gut feeling that like, okay, I can feel it, but we do have to match that up with some additional items as well.
Mm.
Because often when it comes with scaling, there's going to be other people along that journey with you to help you implement scaling. And they can't reach into your gut and get the feeling. They
Mm.
need something on
Right.
paper. They need that content and context to understand why you're going where you are. So often I'll just ask people to walk me through it. And if I find that they don't have clarity on that yet,
Mm.
then they just need to do a little bit more brainstorming. They really need to sit down and make sure they have clarity of
Mm.
where they're going and how they want to scale.
Mm.
The other thing I like to look at is systems. When it comes to running a successful business, when it comes to scaling a business, it means that, can things happen without you, at every point of the process? Are you in the kitchen making the food, taking the order? grabbing the dishes, cleaning the dishes, like, are you doing it all?
Have you been to the restaurant to watch me or something?
But we all do that, you know what I mean? And some of us, we do it also because, as either founders or the original person that was kind of there at the beginning, we remember those times, and we had to be that person, and it's time to be that person, but there's also a time to be able to let go and let somebody else jump in or make sure that the process is in place. Because if you can't take a day off, you can't take a half day off, and everything either crumbles or so many things are missed, or it impacts ultimately your customer's experience, you may not be ready to scale. Because what's happening is your business is either so dependent on you as the founder and you just haven't put the right structure in place, or what has happened is you just need more time to shore up and identify things like repeatable processes, to identify what do you need to do from scratch, and what are some of those things that with the right training, someone else can step in and do. And I don't want to take away from expertise. There are things that either a founder can only do, and sometimes there are things that only a creative person can do, a writer can do. I'm not an amazing writer. I like to get my ideas out, but I need an editor.
Yeah.
And recognizing that I'm not trying to step into someone's shoes, that I'm going to be like writing this beautiful piece. I'm the person for the ideas, and someone else got a bit little polish on it to help it be great. And kind of understanding that in your business and making sure that the right people can step in to move your vision forward is key for scaling. Because if you don't have a team, or at least the support to scale, once you start to scale, either you'll buckle under the pressure of it all, and the responsibility of it all, or your customers will be impacted. And it's so important that you understand that. And then the last thing, kind of playing off that customer side, is I always make sure people really understand who their customer is and who do they serve. And do they spend enough time with their customers and clients? Because they really should be the ones helping shape your business. It should be a part of your vision, but it should be also a part of their vision. It should be a part of how they use your product or service. How do they enjoy it? What do they enjoy about it? And if you're not spending enough time either with them, if you're just at your desk all day processing paperwork, what can happen is you can lose that touch. You can lose that spark that maybe you established when you were small. But when you start to scale, if you don't know how to be in touch, what'll happen is you'll scale the wrong thing. You'll scale the wrong product, or you'll scale it and it was incorrect and you don't know where to go, because we can't all be perfect. Everyone's going to scale something and be like, that wasn't the best way to do it. But if you don't have a touch point with your customer base, you won't know how to reshape it. And you'll either feel like you have to make a U-turn and go backwards, or you'll kind of sit in that like, that like failure kind of zone and start to absorb that. And unfortunately, it's not really necessarily a failure. It's really just a missed opportunity where you really don't have a good pulse and understanding of your customer and clients. And you've maybe shut yourself off from them by accident. It's not that everyone really like runs and hides. It's just that, it's tax season, and when it's tax season, we get busy. And then what's the next thing? Whether you're doing holiday orders, you get busy, or anything. It's the weekends, and the weekends are busier in things like restaurants and so forth, or whatever. All these things sometimes help us or keep us in a kind of running our business mode and inside our business. And sometimes we get too internal that we lose touch, and therefore we scale incorrectly, or we aren't able to right the ship when we make a wrong turn.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
Great.
It's so great. It's really great. And it's just a clarity of thought that you bring to it. I really appreciate that a lot. And I think one of the things also is, for entrepreneurs, is that we're so emotional about our business,
Mm-hmm.
that it does get in the way, because it creates blinders, like, and sometimes it can block one from hearing the truth that one needs to hear in the moment. And so, what would be some ways that you can, that an entrepreneur maybe can, encourage that type of a behavior where they're able to be more open, um, and not be attached in a way that's kind of damaging to their success?
Yeah. That one's a hard one because some of it is personal. It just depends on people's styles. It also sometimes has to do with their environment, their work environment. Sometimes it's just their stage in life. But what I often recommend and what I even try to do is bring things into my life that allow me to have that open perspective. I'm a really big podcaster, meaning I love doing podcasts, but I also love listening to them. And the reason I like to listen to podcasts is it's a great way for me to get new ideas, to hear different perspectives, to hear people who may think of things differently. And also I can hear it in an environment where I may be shaking my head the whole time, like, I don't know if I agree with that one, but I still heard it. Do you see what I mean? Like I still thought about it. And maybe I had to do a check between what I'm thinking and what they're thinking. And what I find is having those outlets, having creative places for you to discover new things, and not just business stuff. And this is really one of my things I work really hard on because I have such a bad habit that I love business and marketing and you know what I mean? Like all this stuff is so exciting for me. But I can get caught in that world. I can forget to come outside that world and just listen to, poetry, just listen to, things that are just different. And one thing I started to do when I was using Clubhouse, when it became very popular, is I started using Clubhouse and people would have a poetry session and I would just show up and listen to it. It's not that, I needed poetry night left necessarily. But what was nice about it is it allowed me to do something that was just creative, just hear someone else's creativity and be inspired and feel the awe of someone else's creativity. Because I think sometimes when you're a business owner, you get a little wrapped up into your own awe and you forget that there are people that do some really cool and amazing things. And they're even something you could never touch. And it's beautiful to see other people's greatness, to inspire you to keep moving forward, and also to allow you to be open-minded. So I would really say find creative outlets, find creative activities. I've also started to do, I do this thing called game night. It started during the during the pandemic because we all weren't going out as much. So, I pulled my whole family into it and I started looking for games and stuff like that. I mean, I have the traditional ones that we all do, like when we were kids and things like that. But I really started to get into it and find completely different, cooperative games where everybody works together for a goal as opposed to, competitive games. Or I have this one game where it inspires photosynthesis. So your goal is to go from a seed to a small tree to a medium tree to a large tree, and the sun is rotating around. And do you know what I mean? So it's it has this environmental vibe to it, and it's still a game, but it's the things that matter to me. So I'm bringing that in. And then even with my poor family, who they're not as big board gamers as me, I was okay, so they could be off the hook. I started finding solo games. And what happened is my mind was craving, that marketing, that challenge, that perspective or strategy, but I needed to give myself a break. So I wasn't closed off. And what I found is I just needed to play some solo games so that my mind was still engaged, but not engaged in my tight knit world, not engaged in just my own little kind of cave. And I didn't just go deeper and deeper and deeper. I could actually do something that was fun, exciting, challenging, but also still kind of fed me. And that really has made a really big difference for
Wow.
me. And I say that because I also don't want people to listen today and be like, oh, she's got it all figured out. Like, if you really listen, you can hear that I'm like, I did this at one point, then I did this, and then I did this. I did it
It
step by
changes and
step.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I figured it out. I tried this, I tried that,
Mhm.
and I keep working to make sure that I'm finding that balance and I give myself,
Mm.
space and time.
Mm.
I give myself that opportunity. And then I'm also not perfect in it. You know what I mean? Like, I do interviews all the time, and sometimes I get nervous before an interview. Don't know why. I do like, I'll do like 3 in a day, and maybe I'll even do like 6 in a week. And like one of them, I'll get nervous. And instead of beating myself up,
Mhm.
I say, well, do your breath work and it'll be good.
Yeah.
And I say, it's okay. So I don't
Yeah.
want people to think I have all the answers. I just work on a lot of things. I
Mhm.
just talk with a lot of people, and I'm very, aspirational. That's just
Mhm.
my personality. But I know that I have to take it one step at a time, and
Mm.
I'm willing to learn along the way. I'm willing to try and test, and I'm willing to, get off a call or at the end of the week and then say to my husband, well, that didn't work. Next week, I think I'm going to do something different. And therefore, I can get to some of these solutions and
Yeah.
some of these things that we talk about today.
Yeah.
How do you keep joy in? Because you appear to me like as you're going from stage to stage, as you're learning, how you're doing, like you seem to be enjoying it. I mean, the success and the failures. How do you keep that you don't get
Yeah.
frustrated?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say I don't get frustrated, because I do. I don't make it sound like that. I don't sometimes, get into a just emotional ball, and it's like I just tied myself in this big knot. Why did I do that to myself? It happens, absolutely. But I think what I found and what I've learned about myself over time is that I am more positively motivated. Some people
Mm,
want a deadline, some people want the pressure to move them forward.
Mm.
And while I do use deadlines, I do use pressure, I do things last minute because I sent you guys something last minute too. Uh, so I don't make it sound like I don't. But what I also have realized and learned is that I can do more, I can do things better, and I'm more willing the next day to get up and do it again and do even greater things
mm,
with that positive reinforcement. Now, not
mm,
everyone's like that. And I'm not asking them to be positive. I'm just saying find out what motivates you and keep that close. Use
Mm.
those things. Sometimes I have like my husband start playing this concert, and for some reason I just loved it. And I listened to it probably way too much, you know? My husband's like, "You listening to that again?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It speaks to me. I don't
It's
know
funny.
why. I don't know why I can feel it, but it's working."
Wow.
And, I didn't anticipate it to do that, but it
Mm.
did. And I'm letting it run its course, and I'm
Mm,
letting it
I
say
like
that
that.
for some reason it inspires me. I want to get up. I stand up,
Mm.
I listen to the music, I sing the music, I'm doing all these things. And at the end of that, whatever session I've had, I feel good. Then
Yeah.
I say, I'm going to try to repeat those same things,
Mm,
because the more positive I am, the more I'm able to face a challenge, because I
mm,
believe on the other side there is something positive for
mm,
me.
Mm.
mm,
The more I'm willing to try something, because I know that I'll be proud of myself for trying, as opposed to I'm looking to be proud of myself for the result. Often I'm saying to
mm,
myself, Stephanie, try it, because that's what I want. That's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to make sure you can step out of your space. We are trying to make sure that you're not, I say we, like I'm having this whole internal dialogue, but, you know, but, we're trying to really make sure that, I don't get boxed in like we've talked
mm,
about earlier.
Mm. Mm.
And therefore, I try to, kind of live bravely and boldly. And therefore, for me to do that, that that positivity really helps for me. That joy, those smiles, all of those things, they just feed me, and
Mm,
I allow myself to be happy, because I do feel like in our world, the world doesn't always allow you to be happy. Like, I
mm,
feel like even in entrepreneurial world, and you let me know if you think differently, but
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like it's the grind, it's the grit. I didn't get any sleep last night. I worked all weekend. Like, we're
mm,
almost proud of bad behaviors.
mm, mhm.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's hard to say, like, no, I had a really good, yeah, I slept well. I got up and had breakfast like I was supposed to.
Mhm,
Do you know what I mean? I had some really great meetings. I didn't run over all day because I planned my day correctly and put
mhm,
30-minute breaks between it. Like, people don't want to hear that positive. Sometimes they almost feel like there's that camaraderie in the negative.
Mhm.
mhm,
Yeah.
And I don't mean that you can't tap into that. And I'm not going to say that, you don't sometimes reach towards it, but I'm just saying reach towards the other two.
Mm.
mhm,
Reach
Mm.
towards that great story, or sharing
Mm.
something positive, or sending somebody a text message. I'll send someone a text message of something just fun that happened to me or something I enjoy, and spreading that joy and being comfortable with feeling that joy.
mhm,
I think is something you have to acquire as a skill,
mm,
because it's a
Mm.
little bit easier to hang out in the rah, 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 I can't
Yeah.
believe,
yeah,
kind of that
Yeah.
space, as opposed to, really being willing to kind of hang out in the sunshine.
It
yeah,
is interesting, and I think there's this feeling of martyrdom that one feels as an entrepreneur, that we are responsible for every single thing and we have all the solutions, and then it's heavy. And yeah, and that just hit me as you said that. It's like, wow, I do need to find that joy, and be on, be on the other side of that as well. That really is important. Yeah,
mm.
yeah. Wow. Thank you for
Yeah,
that. For
absolutely.
reminding me.
Absolutely. And I remind myself sometimes, like when we talk, like, I'm even hearing as we're talking, I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to do this. Or, I should think about that. Like, I did an interview earlier today, and someone said something that I was like, oh, you know what? Have I ever thought about that in the context of my business? And
Mm,
they weren't talking about my business, they were really just talking about a concept.
mm,
And
Mm.
what happens is it just created a light bulb moment. And I could have pushed it down and be like, I'm too busy. I don't have time for that. I'll worry about it later after I get all these like 28 tasks done and send those emails. Instead, I said, wait a minute, let's let that idea or concept develop. Can I give it even
Mhm.
10 or 15 minutes
mm,
and realize that, oh, that might have been an aha moment for me, and just kind of sit in that moment as opposed to just sit and stew, sometimes sit in inspiration.
yeah,
Mm.
It's a cool place to be.
Yeah.
yeah.
A
That's
bit.
really awesome. The I feel like a lot of time, I can speak for myself, I guess, but a lot of times when we are in this like the mode of like being negative a lot, and not really having, like, we never reach out to that other side, the joy, uh that side. um I guess it can be sort of taxing, and you feel like you're always kind of in it. You're always, and there is no other side. But I think, and
Mm.
or if there is another side, there is like, one solution will fix this problem. I don't know what that solution is, but when I get that one solution, it'll fix it all. But I think, the way that you're just sort of describing this, and is that there is, you know even like a miniature entrepreneurial journey, and just trying to find, what that is going to create the inspiration, where, you try something and it doesn't work, you're like, okay, well, let's just move on to the next thing. You try something, it doesn't work, you're like, oh, okay, next thing, try something, it does work a little bit, and you're like, okay, well, let's just add that in, like, let's see if I can keep doing this, without feeling, the shame or like of not finding that one key that was going to unlock everything
Mhm.
and then make everything perfect from here on out. I feel like the way that you're describing it and the way I'm hearing it is that like it's just a process. You find one thing, it works for a little bit, and you just accept that this is the thing that is working right now. You use it to inspire you to keep going, and then you find something else, and then maybe this inspires you a little bit more, then you add that into it. And if maybe the first thing doesn't inspire you anymore, like in 6 months, you're like, all right, well, let's move that and move on from that, go on to the next thing. And it's sort of like just this journey of just using inspirational things around you to then like move forward, as opposed to feeling as though there is an end goal, and once you've
Mm.
found that thing, now you're happy. You've unlocked happiness. Now, like, now that's over, let's move on to the next thing. It's like happiness is a journey, right?
Wow.
It's Happiness is not necessarily a stage or a level to reach that you can, or a boss you can beat. It is just a journey and its work. So yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. I love the way you phrased it
Yeah.
because it really is something that you're just tapping into at times. You're, seeing or you're able to touch it and, you're able to spread it and share it. It's that idea that it has different forms and that it's the idea is that hopefully you can keep it always within reach.
Mhm.
So I definitely agree with the way you said it, and I think it can help many of us to to love the journey, not just
Mm.
Right. Right.
hope that we hit like the next stop on this train
Right.
is
Yeah.
going to be this, but
Yeah.
really enjoy it because it can extend into all aspects of our lives. It can help you
Totally.
bring joy into other relationships. It can help you bring joy into difficult projects. It can help you bring joy into difficult situations
Mm.
because the idea is, happiness isn't foreign to you anymore. Happiness is something that you understand. And
Mm.
when you start understanding it, it's really something that can just spread throughout so many things you do, even some things that even feel mundane, it's kind of
Mm.
like I said, I'm just eating breakfast, but eating breakfast outside speaks to me.
Yeah.
Looking
Totally.
out a window speaks to
Yeah.
me. It's just breakfast.
That's right.
But it's just that space and time
Right.
that it works for me.
That's
I
awesome.
I, I really like the idea of actually having that there's a space for joy in everything that we're doing, you know? And so like when we bring on people with different skills into our business with us, so that the things that I know how to do, there'll be more joy there. And then
Mm.
somebody else can then do something else that'll bring them joy within it. That way I'm not always doing all those 8 things that I don't like to do, where the only 2 that I really love are so small compared to the other 8, and the 8 consumes me and makes my 2 things that I love to do be joyless because I'm constantly worrying about the other 8 things. And it's really it's great. I love the way you really, it's almost as though we have to give ourselves permission to say, no, I've got to step into joy here.
Mm.
Like what I'm doing, if it has meaning, if I'm making a difference, then I definitely should be able to have joy in this. Otherwise, why do it?
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And defining that joy. Just like you said, when you're working on projects, sometimes the joy is the collaboration with a team member. It's not
Right.
just getting the project done
Mm.
or, celebrating their accomplishment, where, okay, they're working on that project and then they're able to figure it out, or they take what you've given them and they take it to a whole new level, or they do something unique or different. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's exciting. Like, that's a fun thing to see that a person's not only finding their aha moment, but it's beautiful to know that, I didn't have to like lock myself in a room to even get to half of that state. You know what I mean? Like someone else was able to do it. So
Yeah.
I think it's defining joy in different ways, and
Mm.
and finding those moments that are not always just getting the project done, but it's having time to laugh with your team. It's having time for them to shine. It's having time for them to showcase. And it's having time, even as founders, to get to learn from our teams.
Right.
To our teams do something and we're like, whoa, and express that, not express it as that was a very good job. you know, Express it as, oh, that was kind of cool. How did you do that? How'd you come up with it? And really give them that moment that we might
Mm.
experience as founders when we came up with an idea. Give them that moment to
Right.
shine and be recognized.
Mm.
And that can be that joy, because it's, to me, it's so exciting to not only tap into your own joy, but see somebody else experience. It's kind of
Mhm.
like sometimes when we have like a niece, or like a young niece or something like that, or or nephew, and they're like a kid and they do something very small, but they just love it. You know what I mean? They're playing with a balloon as an example, and they're just enjoying it. And you see that and you get reminded of how
Mm.
something like just playing with a balloon can be a wonderful and beautiful thing.
Mm.
Absolutely.
We can apply that, I think, to our businesses as well.
Well,
Yeah, definitely.
so
Wow, this is so
that's
great.
great. We're running out
Wow.
of time. As yeah, it didn't feel like we
You mean I can't continue to talk to Stefan? I would all day. It's so
yeah.
great. It's such a joy just to yeah, just wow. It's so
Yeah.
great. So
Yeah.
great. It's yeah. Uh,
Thank you.
I feel like you're giving me so much permission to just have joy in what I do. Yeah, not take it so seriously.
Yeah. So we do have a couple more questions for you. So what advice would you give to a either a person who is, just starting out in their entrepreneurial journey, or, they have an idea, and they want to create a business, a vegan business that is going to be successful. What would you what advice would you give to a first timer, or a new idea, or is that a word? No, it's not a word, but you
I was
get
going to
it.
say ideation. It's all, yeah,
Yeah,
there's always kind of,
ideation. Exactly. Yeah,
in the business world, we kind of like make up words
Yeah,
sometimes.
there you
totally. Yeah, yes,
And
yes.
then people love it, and then it continues. So
Yes.
absolutely, I know where you're headed. I would say a couple of things. Often when I teach people who are just starting out, is build a roadmap, especially a roadmap for your first 12 years. And I say a
Mm,
roadmap, not a like recipe kind of thing. Not, I'm only going to
Mm.
put like 2 cups of sugar in, and 5 olives and this and
mm,
this and this. It's not meant to be rigid. It's really meant to help you along the way, to say, okay, I'm here today. What does success look like in 12 months?
mhm,
What would it look like? What would I have accomplished? Have I sold 5 products? Because maybe you have a high-end product. Does it mean that I've been featured in 3 magazines?
mm,
Does it mean that I've had X amount of customers, coming through the door, maybe as a restaurant? Is it that I've figured out my core menu? Because sometimes it doesn't all have to be financial. It can be
Mhm.
answering key questions that you need to get answered so you can better form your business. So having 2, maybe even 3 things that you want to say within 12 months, this is where I want to be. And then you work your way backwards.
Mm.
You
mm,
start to say, well, how much time do I need to do that? And then if I don't know exactly what that time is, take those 3 things and break them up. In 3 months, say, okay, I want to make X amount of progress in that project in 3 months.
Mm.
Okay, so therefore, 3 months in, 6 months in, 9 months in, you know what you're trying to accomplish.
mm,
And then you have that
Mm.
last month to perfect, maybe perfect's the wrong word, but that last 3 months for you to improve upon what you've built.
Mhm.
mhm,
Give you that time so you can take what you did and make it better. Because often we don't give ourselves time to improve, we often only give ourselves time to launch. So
Yeah,
that's how I
that's
would
right.
break down. The other thing is, for some of us, they're not like maybe huge planners. For some of us that are like, what? I like to, live life, based on how I feel, what's going on. And I understand that. You may need a tighter timeline, but at a minimum, everyone should know for a specific month, what are you trying to do this month? What's
Mm,
the big win of the month? If you need to even bring that down more, what's the big win of the week? Because
mm,
sometimes when you're first getting started, you feel like there's a gazillion things to do. It's like, I got to do paperwork. I have to file this. I have to set up a website. You have all these tactical things. And by sitting down and saying, week one, I'm going to get this done. Week two, I'm going to get this done. And in my first 60 days, this is what I'm going to do each week.
mm,
Then all you do is start to march towards that. Yes, other stuff will come up, but remember, you're making that commitment to yourself. You're working through that exercise of accountability
Mm.
where you set something you want to get done that takes a week to get done. So I
mm.
don't want you to say, I'm going to get it done in a week and it takes a month to do it. Got a little lopsided there. But, saying, okay, this is what I can do this week, committing to yourself and then getting that done, that practice will go a long way in your business.
Mm,
That will help you get into a process of completion, a
mm,
process of getting things done and being able to walk your way there. So I really love to tell people to kind of put a level of structure around launching their idea or developing their ideas or
mm.
marching towards that 12-month goal, or worst case scenario, 30, 60, 90-day goal, just so you get used to that process. The other thing is, I love to tell people to come up with professional goals, like professional personal goals. And what I mean by that is, what do you want to do for you? Do you want to become a stronger public speaker? Do
Mm,
you want to
absolutely.
write more? Do you
Mm,
want to express yourself more? Do you want to try videos? Do you want to do reels on Instagram because you've never done it before, but other people have done it and you're like, I'm gonna just try it. Give yourself one of those like kind of personal goals so
Mm.
that your accomplishments are not just tied to things that might feel mundane.
Mm.
Your accomplishments can feel like you're investing in yourself. You're investing in you becoming more of that leader, entrepreneur, founder, whatever title that you're going to be taking on. You're actually doing that. And then the final thing I would say when you're building your business is understand who your customer is and figure out how you're going to hang out with them.
Mm.
Whether you're hanging out and they really know you're there because you're active,
Mhm.
or if you're hanging out because you're just part of groups that your customers
mm,
are in, support forums, just places so that you know who they are and what they're talking about, what they're
Mhm.
interested in, what kind of feedback, and start to participate.
mm.
Start to really, hang out, enjoy, and be a part of that community. And actually, I'm going to stick in one more thing. I know I said three, but one more. Um, but get your first few customers or clients.
Mm.
And I bring that up because sometimes what we do is when we're building a brand new business, we are just building it and planning it. And 6 months pass and 3 months, and then a
Mm.
year passes. And we're trying to make this amazing thing,
Mm.
as opposed to saying, this is where the product, the service, the item is today.
Mm,
Let's open the doors and let some customers and clients come through and give us feedback, knowing it's not perfect, because honestly, it'll
Mhm.
never be perfect. And being transparent about it. Say, hey, this is my first rendition. This is what I'm working on. This is the prototype of it, and this is why I'm doing it. Or I want you to do pre-sales because I'm coming out with a book and I want to see if you guys are supporting this project.
Mm.
Allow people to support you in that development. Don't be afraid and think that it has to come out with like a bow on it the first time out the gates. And I think a lot of times getting those first few clients, having events, a lot of times what people do before having a restaurant, they'll do pop-ups.
Mhm.
And it's a
mhm.
great way for them to get
Right.
started, to prepare the meals, get feedback, do those things. Or sometimes people do a food truck before they do a restaurant. Don't be afraid to do a version of your ultimate goal to help you get started, knowing that maybe you're going to be a fitness coach and you want to come out with, a line of protein, and you're going to be coaching people and you're going to have a membership program. Great. Pick one of those and get some customers, get some
Mm-hmm.
clients, coach them, get a success story, get someone saying what you have done has helped them. And when you start to hear those stories, it's reassuring.
Mm-hmm.
When you get that feedback, it helps you guide your way. And once you have kind of customers and people there, you've built a very unique support system for yourself as an entrepreneur because you have people that have said that they value what you do. It's not
Mm,
just the people who you gave it away for free or gave them a coupon or something like that, so they could, get X, Y, and Z and not invest. Having an actual paying customer is a big thing because it can really motivate you and help you feel like what you're doing matters to
mm,
others.
mm.
And not that we're looking for their justification. It's just that in a business, there's always that handshake between the business and the customer. And the more we can encourage that, the more that, you start to build people who are like almost invested in your success as customers,
Totally.
the sooner you'll be able to build those
Mm,
strong and sustainable businesses.
Mm.
that's awesome.
That's really
It's
great.
really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Uh,
Yeah, I love it.
so next question is, what are you working on at the moment?
Question, because it also even links to what we were just talking about and even kind of earlier conversation. One of our big things we're working on is this like online community.
Mm.
And the reality of it is like, I've had this dream for 3 years. So I say that to say like, there's tons of things that I do and I execute and I implement fast and quickly. And it's been one of my like superpowers. But in this thing, it hasn't been my like fast, quick thing. And the reality is maybe it's just not that kind of project. It has to take
Yeah.
time
Mm,
for it. But what I love about it is our online community is a way for people to get support long term. I work with a lot of
mm,
people one on
mm.
one. I work with people like in 6-month coaching agreements. I do online courses, which people have loved. What I learned over the years is people are like, what's my next course? What's my next training? And I
Oh, I
haven't been able
see.
to always keep up with the demand. And it's been so sad and frustrating, like all those things you talked about. Like that's the story of success, that I realized that maybe what I needed was much more of a membership kind of program where people can be in the space with me. I can work with a larger group of people.
I
And
see.
through like a year and through kind of having this program where people are getting constant access to me, they can come into a
Mm.
live session almost once a week. And they'll do different sessions. One's like tea with Stephanie, so it's more casual. Some of it's
Mm.
like a co-working session. So like, we sit down and like do social media planning together so they can
Mm.
see how I do it and they can get work done. And then some are
Nice.
like office hours where you just show up and ask me questions. But what's been exciting about doing this is it's given me an opportunity to kind of bring all the things I've done in all the years that used to be kind of in their own little silos. Like I have a paid podcast or I have a course or I do one-on-one. Now I'm able to bring it all together so people can get the full experience, access everything in one place,
Wow.
and get that live
Nice.
support. So
Mm.
that's my big project.
That's
That's my
awesome.
big thing that I had to be patient about. And I'm really, really excited
I'm
about
gonna
our
have to
launch.
I'm gonna have to check that out for sure.
Oh, definitely. And give me feedback.
Yes.
When are you launching that, or is it already launched? Or
We're going to be doing what we call open house in May.
Okay.
Okay.
So the open house will give people an opportunity to kind of check it out, hang out,
Oh,
see the
great.
information and everything before they become active members.
Nice.
And then in June, we'll have people switch over from that open house, 30-day kind of trial period
Yeah.
into becoming either full-fledged members. We'll also have a like free level as well, because when you're first starting out and running a business, you sometimes don't have the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some resources that we can offer people in that lane so that you still get support if you're not ready for full-fledged membership.
Yeah.
So we're going to have those kind of like paid, and then we're also going to have a kind of free version. We call it our vegan mainstream village. Uh,
I love that.
and that should hopefully be a nice place for people to get started if
Yeah.
they're not ready to make the leap.
Wow, that's awesome. So last question,
VMV.
huh?
VMV.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So the last question is, which is also going to be helpful for the people to understand how to get a hold of you for this as well, but how can people reach you and get more into this, into what you're doing, ask you questions, or, even become, customers for you?
Absolutely. So we're definitely on social media. So it's always a great place to get connected. You can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. So you just look me up, Stephanie Redcross West. Challenge of getting married. Sometimes you'll see Red Cross, sometimes you'll see West, but that's okay. It's still me. So look for the photo. But on all of our social media platforms, we have a vegan mainstream version. So always look at the handle at vegan mainstream, whether you're on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, we're on all of the platforms. So it's a great way to sometimes get some free content. It's a great way to get inspiration. We also offer free webinars, which is another one of the things I love doing because it can train people on like new and exciting and trendy things. You can always drop us an email. We use our kind of group email because that way everyone can jump in and it doesn't just sit in my inbox all day because I'm in meetings all day. So we use our support at Vegan Mainstream. So if you have a question or you need anything, you can definitely shoot us an email. And then our website has all the information about our services, our products, and I also offer a free discovery call. It's like a quick 20-minute call where if people are interested in working with us, but they're like, I don't know what I need, or should I do
Mm.
this, or I can't decide, should I invest? You just jump online, click a link. You can book my calendar is live online, so you can book a time with me. And then I spend about 20 minutes just kind of walking through what you need and answering those questions.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
Great.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on today and just giving people expanding their heads so much that they can't put a hat on because there's just so much information in there. um yeah, I mean, thank
It's
you
a
so
good thing I
much.
didn't. It's a good thing I didn't wear a hat.
Yeah.
It would have been ripped right now. It's so great. Thank you so
um
much.
yeah,
Absolutely. It's been wonderful. It's been great to talk. It's been great to chat. And it's just fun to be able to talk about these things. It was fun that we covered so many different topics. That, you know what I mean? It just shows how like well-rounded we are, I think,
yeah.
as individuals, and also, what messaging some of us need at different points in
Mm.
time. So I really appreciate this. This was really fun. And I just appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and to speak with your community.
Thank
You
you so
so
much.
much.
And
Really
they're happy,
appreciate
very
it.
happy too. If they're anything like us, they're very happy that they even got to hear you. So
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
all right,
Thank you.
Great. Well, we'll see you soon, I'm sure. We should do this again.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Take care.
So we just had Stephanie on I mean, what I mean, right?
She was powerful. That was great. I really liked it a lot. She's got a great personality. Just her presentation, the self-confidence,
Mm-hmm.
the comfort that she's got in her own skin in being herself.
Mm-hmm.
It's so great. And that people are going to really get a lot out of that.
Yeah.
And just watching, observing her, just navigate through all these different questions and different aspects of creating a vegan world, a more conscious world.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't wait to actually have her come back because maybe we can even narrow it down to one or two things that she can really teach us and just,
Mm-hmm.
really get us out. And I definitely want to make sure that we promote, her workshops, whatever she's
Mm-hmm.
teaching. It'll be really, really good for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Vegan
She's awesome.
mainstream is the company, and I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, just clicking through the website, there's a lot of stuff here, and also on her socials, and there's a lot of stuff there too. A lot of information that people can just, without, I obviously think that you should be following her, whatever you can do to get into that world, and also whatever you can do to get in on the May, you know, uh the open house, that she's got going on.
Right.
Get in on that while you can, because there's just so much good information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's exciting. Yeah, I'm really happy.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess we'll see everybody. So that was Stephanie Redcross West, and we will see everybody else next week on the when we have a new guest that's going to be really cool and really amazing. Yeah. So we'll see you.
All
See y'all
right.
then.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Green Carpet Interviews. We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
This show was brought to you by Veg on the Edge, our vegan restaurant in Santa Cruz and San Luis Obispo. If you're in the area, be sure to stop by and check out our delicious plant-based dishes. Check out vegontheedge.com for more information.
To stay connected with us and learn more about conscious living, follow us on Instagram at Green Carpet Interviews. We love hearing from our listeners and would love to hear your thoughts and feedback.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Green Carpet Interviews.